pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, Treasurer, please call the roll.
Council President Dr. Heidi.
Here.
Council Vice President Mike Wolski.
Here.
Council Member Joe Seaver.
Here.
Council Member Ed Loud.
Here.
Council Member Anna Peak. Here.
All right, consent agenda, I'm assuming everybody's read through the claims register. Yeah, in addition, there was several reports, both on June and July's budget. Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate that and all this. Anybody have any questions over the consent agenda items? No motion. So moved. Second. I have a motion and a second, additional conversation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, citizens' comments, citizens? Computer guy, nothing?
Nothing for me to start.
You guys are usually pretty, extroverted, not doing this stuff. How?
I
Yeah. Staff reports, chief.
We've been doing probation checks with Marion County, and we are going to start doing those with Hancock County. They've been pretty successful and get us out there and into people's residences. October 12th, we're hosting a pickleball instructor course. And we have also been working with grants, focusing on traffic stops, a lot of enforcement there. So you should see some improvements in your areas. If you have, please let us know. We can switch out and make sure that we are in the right areas. For you. Yeah, we have to.
Do I have any questions for chief? Okay, Ben?
We have, most likely before the end of the year, maybe early spring, 2 commercial retail, development filing for planning commission. One's a lot closer than the other, likely seems promising. Second one, we'll see how it goes at planning commission. We'll stick with that.
Can you talk about types of business, vaguely?
We commercial.
That's helpful.
Not at this time.
Variety, I mean, there's potential for a variety of general commercial kind of retail, small office, restaurant.
Mix of uses at each of them, it's just one, it's more polished than the other, so, happy to talk about in another time. So, beyond that, I've been working with the utility staff lots, and those come on, they're interviewing people at backfill Cody. They're getting a lot of people that aren't currently certified, but they're okay with that, as long as they seem trainable, and somebody that they think can get their certifications. We have multiple operators that are certified now, so we don't have to have them certified, and they keep everything current of the plant or anything, but, hopefully get somebody trainable in there. But we do have a lot of developments going. Wawa has their grand opening Friday. I think you guys should have gotten that invite and their emails and from Wawa directly, so they should look for that. Send out some more information on that. I think that's 8 AM Friday, is that correct?
8:30.
8:40, so. Sure, that makes more sense.
8:30, 40.
I know, it's on my calendar, I don't really, I just follow up with them, that's me to be.
It's right, I want to tell you to go somewhere.
Yeah, right now it says town council, so you're right. Just good amount of stuff going on, right now, Food Truck Fridays has been going pretty successful from. All accounts, seems like they have your initial rush of people stopping on their way home from work, and then slight lull, and then another big rush of people who've gotten home and changed and then go out and get some food, so. They'll be back out there this Friday and next Saturday, is that,
This Friday and next Friday.
yeah, I was gonna say, that's what I meant, so. 2 left.
Next Saturday would be MVP.
October. So we're got a lot going on, trailer treat next month, so good stuff. Any questions?
I'm afraid to.
That's right.
Business?
All right, new business, consideration of resolution 2025-11, property surplus. Chief and Everett, are you guys good on this? No. Let's put you on, because it's okay. Chief, go right ahead.
This is just vehicles that have met their end of life. That are up for. According to our contract with the enterprise to go ahead and be surplus.
Okay. I see 3 vehicles listed on the back, 2 of them are, one's really high mileage, two's moderate, and one's kind of low, but she said it's really.
These 2019 Tahoes have really been bad.
Really?
Especially with a lot of repairs, yes, so the lower mileage does appear like you would think they would be.
Has some service life, but they don't.
Absolutely not.
Just
Absolutely
need
not.
information. And the Traverse, that was yours, wasn't it?
Yes,
198,000 miles, what'd you go to? No, it's 98,000.
Nice.
Anybody have any questions? Take a motion. Move it.
Second.
I got a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those, ayes have it.
thank you.
Thank you, man, appreciate it. Everett, tell us about roads.
Yeah. The road list on number 3, I believe it was Starter Street from 40 to Saturn. I overlooked that on the spring list, so that was a mistake. That just got repaved. So I swapped that out for Dunbar Drive from Hopkins Road to Beckley Road. Do you have any other questions on any of the other roads? The rest of them stayed the same?
Michigan Street, Lower Muncie, and Music Street. Those won't, does that need to be done now with the sewers going in? Is this gonna affect the storm water and all that?
Michigan Street.
Michigan Street between Muncie and Music.
I don't think so, but I'll check that. We'll have time before application goes in October, so we can get it.
Okay, I just don't wanna put down new asphalt and cut it up, dig it up or any of
I
that.
appreciate that. And I would also add that it's most likely gonna be much more difficult to get awarded the community crossings grant for this application round. The current administration has dialed that back, the amount of funding, and they've made match situation better if you are awarded, but they've dialed back the pool of road funding for that and increased basically the competitiveness of grant pool. So it's going to be more challenging moving forward with the current administrative structure.
That New York Street, or Depot Street's the end of the road. Is that to the west or to the east?
It'd be to the east.
So
Dead ends.
the tiny little.
Yeah.
Derbyshire was just paved in Glen Oaks Village. And the storm inlets were collapsing. I think I had mentioned it a year or so ago, they've not been fixed. So they put asphalt down there, I hope that's okay. I don't know,
I'll check on that.
okay,
I'll have to see if they poured bottoms in them or
yeah,
what's on that. without
I-
them being here.
they already had it done before I
Right,
noticed it, or I would have said something sooner.
yeah.
And the sidewalks in Glen Oaks Village, I know you did some work at the very front. But, they have not been repaired.
That's scheduled for later this year. There's quite a bit of sidewalks.
Okay, so still for when?
I think he said it was be about November is when his schedule is.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's what the agreement was.
okay,
The sidewalks they did are the ones tied to the grant, they have to do. the
yeah,
ADA
yeah,
per
for the
program.
ADA,
Yeah. So
and
different.
then when are they gonna be striping the Penzi?
That's the one that I had messaged you guys about, that we're evaluating the cost of renting or purchasing
Okay.
versus that, because the cost was
Okay,
little prohibitive.
It's pretty extensive, I thought, paint's right.
Yeah, it was about 65 or 75,000.
It was about 77,000.
Yeah. For
Let's see if we can do that
some
now.
house, right?
what?
So they're seeing if we can do that.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I know, it's just, I was hoping to get it done before weather got bad.
Yeah.
It really is a liability, I could tell you a few stories from a nursing standpoint of my daughter, so,
Try not to talk about
I know, I'm just saying. I shouldn't, but
How
you
much,
guys all got my point.
how much will the quote for that year?
that. It's a low 77,000 for the center line.
77 out.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
just,
sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
I know they're looking at, you looked at renting equipment or purchasing, like you said, having the, maintenance who's doing it, so I'll do it for half. Yeah.
They're, the machine that they recommend, part of the reason it's so expensive is one that's guided to actually keep the center line, say, over that long distance, it's hard to keep actually close to center and not wavy, so they recommend one that's essentially geolocated and tracked that way, it goes off it, so. Purchase one fairly expensive machine that does that, and the one that's geolocated, they don't rent, that's what Everett found out. And they rent one. That's not located, that they think will struggle to keep it down the center of the pavement, so, but if we were to purchase a more expensive machine. We could also do stop bars in the house, centering in roads, all kinds of other paint throughout town, not just do the trail.
Out of curiosity, do we have any kind of quote of what it would cost to purchase one?
You have to bid it, if you say that,
I think they're around 30,000, 40 for the buy one.
I'm talking about the geolocated machine.
I thought that's what it was.
I thought that was the other one.
Actually, we'll have to get back to you on the quotes for that.
I appreciate that, thank you so much.
Yeah, I had another digit on there, so. We're definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to tie you in, I'm tied in, but I'm gonna have to tie you.
That's fair.
Yeah, let us know, that'd be great, Everett. I understand the Councilwoman P's concerns, so.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else has any questions, for this? Thank gosh, they gave me a red star, that's my hint, this is an action item, so we need to, take a motion on this. The roadwork list.
Motion to approve the road property.
Second. I have a motion and a second, any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Ed, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Lips, introduction of ordinance 2025-15, the 2026 budget, involving eagerly anticipated.
You guys should have the Form 4 ordinance in your packet and my budget memo in your packet as well. The recommended budget, total, tax budget is $7,481,326. With a adopted tax levy of $5,556,621 and a adopted tax rate of 1.8502. This has been quite the up and down, back and forth budget season with some of the changes from SEA 1, new public law that was retroactive, that impacted revenue shift. We landed in a better spot than we initially thought we were going to be at. Department of Local Government Finance. Their circuit breaker estimates and their estimates in general didn't have any AV calculated into it. So when we were looking at those numbers, like Erica was doing her estimates, Adam was doing his estimates off that. So at one point we thought we were 980,000-ish over, but we were able to work back and do some AV assessments and projections on that conservatively to get to where we think is a healthy, realistic budget number for that. But again, we don't have certified net AVs for Hancock County still. There's 12 or 16, I don't remember how many counties out of 50 some in the state that still haven't certified, which is really unusual. Again, that's legislative related. They're trying to figure out, some of them on parcel by parcel basis, the impact of legislation. So they're past due statutorily by about 7 weeks. So this budget is a increase from last year's budget about 12.3%. But the general fund is up about, budget wise, 15.4%. So that's an increased total of $776,673. And then to the general fund, which is the majority of that, $645,649. Which would be underfunded in that amount by $198,294. I talk about in my memo, we're having a rough insurance year. We're about 108% of expected through end of August. Last year, we finished the year at 94% of expected. We think we're gonna have another tough year for insurance, and we've depleted a lot of self-insurance funds. So we're trying to put $1.5 million back into that self-funded insurance fund, which accounts for most of that. Recommending 3% salary increase as a part of this budget. There's consideration for an additional police hire, and we'd have to evaluate other hires in April once we have first revenues coming in.
And that's on top of the 2 we approved.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. You guys will recall from the presentation, we estimated we're at least 5 short. If you could start getting into tax shifts and things like that, you get a little bit more, but I think we have all agreed that public safety is a kind of cornerstone of the community, and having strong economic development and kind of infrastructure in place for that. So that's really high level where we're at. We kept things relatively close to the same, otherwise from last year. We are growing. The legislation does slow our revenue growth, but it's nothing that's not happened before. You guys have very healthy excess reserves. It could run for a very long time. Legislation's going around and slowly talk about income tax, because that will be changing in 2028. If any of the other adopting agencies go to the municipal lit, then it basically could zero out 100% of the lit, because the catch-up system could go away in the county if adopted. So it'd be very important for the council to prepare to adopt a municipal lit for 2028 to keep things relatively stable. They're estimating if you guys adopted the max available rate lit, it would have minimal service impacts at that point in time. So Adam's here, he'll do a sustainability after the public hearing. Erica and I are here if you guys have questions. We also have an option to adjourn to a work session and talk more if you guys want to get more in the weeds later, but I'm fine with us going through it now or later, or go on. So introduction for tonight, plan would be to adopt at your next meeting. So.
Is everybody okay, probably in a short work session afterwards to hear Adam's report, kind of have him do that? Are we okay with that? Okay. Yeah, I think we'll do a short work session afterwards. It's fine. If that's okay with you, Dan?
Yeah,
That's fine. We can talk a little more open field that one.
I mean, yeah. So.
All right, Mr. Litz, second item on here, introduction to ordinance 2025-16, adopting the public safety nuisance policy. For introduction.
Yeah, can you remind me in 100 minutes and then pull up presentation? Just kind of wanted to go through this because it's a little bit unique from what you guys have done. We'll go to the next slide. Yep, so just quick purpose statement, right? We kind of know what this is about, to abate excessive calls from businesses. We've had situations where it impedes our police's ability to respond to other places because they're repeat violators, repeat offenders within the community. And then it also becomes somewhat of an undue tax burden when those businesses are utilizing a large majority of the police time. So going through the list under this policy, we in 2024 would have had 7 businesses that would qualify as a chronic violator. On the low end, fines would have gone over $150,000 in 2024 if not abated through the process that we created here. It would apply to commercial properties as defined there. Industrial would not apply to residential, medical facilities, other government entities, schools. So what counts as chronic violator? Call for service anytime sworn member of the police department, dispatch, employed responds to an incident at a location, whether or not it's a valid complaint or citation. Valid complaint documented that requires public safety at business. If more than one valid complaint occurs within 24-hour time period, both those count separate issues. Citation, violation of ordinance, federal, state law requirement, pay fine. So the way it would work is progressive. Is it pretty much has to be. So on the 7th call, complaint or citation, a warning notification will be sent to public safety team, which is defined in this essentially as police, the captains, myself and Christine, to review that and go through kind of valid complaints and citations for that time period. If they hit a 10th complaint call, because we'll notice them at 7th, it requires a meeting with the team within 30 days of that 10th valid complaint. As a part of that, there'd be a remediation agreement following the 10th call for service, complaint or citation. The business owner would be required to enter a remediation agreement with the public safety team. So it goes from there, 15th call, complaint or citation, within the 90-day periods, and either the failure to enter a remediation agreement, failure to substantially meet the obligations of the remediation agreement. The business will be designated as a chronic violator for 6 months and will receive $250 fine for subsequent violations. Have a little bit note there, the business is working with the team on a remediation plan following 10th complaint to improve the situation. Business will not be fined regardless of hitting its 15th valid complaint. So 7 complaints, kind of went through that there about complaints. Probably easy enough, to kind of move through that because it talks about the mandatory meeting with remediation. Let's go to that one because that has examples. Remediation agreement in writing signed by the business owner and public safety team, set forth reasonable remedial measures as established by the town, which must be initiated within 90 calendar days. Include proactive measures, have a term of no more than 6 months, be fully executed within 30 days of the notice and the mandatory meeting. Business owner shall report progress towards remedial efforts.
Then where'd you pull most of this from, out of curiosity? Is
Um,
that the writing?
A lot of it has been established in a couple other communities in the area. Fishers was one of the adopters of this early, about 4 years ago. So abandoned vehicle, example of remediation agreements, register vehicles per customer, address broken down vehicles on a lot, city meeting, proactive keep an eye on parking lot. Vehicles can be tagged and removed within 72 hours. False alarms, train employees on alarm system. Make sure staff is attentive to alarm system throughout the evening. Update, maintain alarm system. Make sure it's working properly. Suspicious person, post customer only. Allowed signs. One card key per customer if it's like a gym type activity. Solicitation in the lobby, like posted, not business related, like keeping some of that out. Then chronic violator team determines current business once they have. Either business owner has not entered the agreement at the time. Public safety designate commercial property as a chronic violator. Following 10th complaint, well, that again says if they're working with them. So
Ben, is this enforceable now in the Marion County side since we're starting to need to do it, just on the Hancock side?
it should be enforceable now in both counties. So So once they're chronic violator, like I said, 6 months designation. Any subsequent calls, $250 payable to town. Legal or attorneys can take additional action to abate nuisance in accordance with state law. If injunctions or other items are needed.
That include like property liens.
That property liens wouldn't be under this kind of nuisance agreement, no, so.
If not paid.
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't be it under the nuisance, but example one, they hit 7 calls, owner. Has hit 10 calls, complaints, met with public safety team, owner executed a remediation agreement. Substantially complying, owner reached 15 calls, complaints, business is not a chronic violator because they're following remediation plan. So if they're meeting their remediation plan, then they're making an effort, we do not start finding them. Sample 2, go through that, owner has done nothing, and like they've done the remediation plan, but they're not doing what they agreed to, reaches 15 calls, they are a chronic violator and fines would start. 3, the same thing, get all the way up, and if they refuse to meet with the public safety team and execute 15 calls, complaints, is a chronic violator, there'll be fines. If you got example 4, owner did not execute remediation agreement or have done nothing in the agreement or did not attempt to substantially comply. Business reaches 15 calls, complaints or citation, business was designated a violator, 6 months has passed, but the business owner has not paid any fees or fines, they would keep their chronic violator designation. So that would not fall off at the end of 6 months if they hadn't complied. That's kind of quick and dirty overview of the policy, so. If you guys have any questions on that, it's for introduction tonight, you guys can digest that if there's changes you want, but. The numbers of calls for some of our businesses are, I think one of them for 24 was over 700 calls to one business, if I remember correctly, and then there was about 554, and we have 2 or 3 businesses that really are monopolizing the tax dollars, and just responding to their businesses, so. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they don't pay. I know you said that we can file for an injunction, but. Not sure what that means, like how.
It'd be similar to
Okay,
code enforcement stuff, like when people don't pay fines, it
Yeah.
gets to a court. or
I'm just
something.
thinking of.
I don't think,
out of town.
I thought you were asking if not paying liens was a violation of that, not asking if we could lien it, and I'm not positive the answer on that. I think we would still have to treat it similar to code enforcement and take them to court.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of maybe out of town owners or whatever, that. Might just ignore it and not pay it.
Right.
How would we get our money?
Well,
Usually when they get a notice from the attorneys that there's an intent to file an injunction or suit, that gets attention, and if that doesn't, once the court date is scheduled.
Yeah.
For code enforcement case.
if they don't show up to a court case, that works pretty well for us, so.
Joe?
Guys have any initial concerns or things that stand out to you that you might consider before the next meeting on that policy, or?
I think it's
Probably.
good.
Just kind of looking at it. Wonder how that would affect mixed use. Growth. You got a business on the first floor, apartments on the second, third.
The business use would still qualify, and apartments do qualify under that, it's just standard residential does not, so.
Single family.
Yeah, so commercial units, single family residential does not qualify. And it's outlined in more detail in the policy itself and in the slides, so.
So if there was a space that was leased, would that go with the injunction being against the owner of the property?
I think it says it can be
It would,
either or.
it being as the owner, I think typically, I mean, the owner may put it back on the tenant depending on their contractual obligations, but the town is gonna go after the owner of the property, not the tenant typically.
The person that's leasing the property. I think I read that. Is that like,
In certain situations, yeah, like if you have a bad user, it depends somewhat on their contractual obligation, right? Because a lot of retail centers. Is one thing versus like a rental tenant, so it's more considering. Like, a lot of your strip centers have one owner, right, but you have all these separate businesses, so. You're really going after the business in that they're the tenant it's referring to, not like somebody renting a house, if that makes sense. Commercial tenants is really.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I have a question from staff before we close out new business to suspend the rules so they can bring forth the exos if we like. Do I have a motion on that? So moved. Second. I have a motion, second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Lips, you have the floor.
Okay. So we have Jackson here in case there's any technical questions. We also have Captain Wagner who has more knowledge of this probably than me as well. But one of the final steps from separating from the city of Indianapolis from a technology standpoint is our network rebuild. A lot of our equipment still tied to ISA or end of life, end of service. So we need to get separated from that. I gave you guys a memo in your packet from the agreement that I put together to go with their agreement to review kind of current situation, out of dated, out of warranty ISA equipment. Some of our equipment that is in the mix is end of life and gets kind of upgrades and stuff on the police side. Project 12's complete network rebuild, modern warranted equipment. It has a 5-year agreement or 5-year warranty on that agreement. Accidentally closed my window. Apologies. There's a lot of stuff in the council share this time. There it is. Sorry about that. A little bit of a breakdown because I don't like the way that Access puts their budget together on here, threw me off a little bit. The initial cost that talks about labor includes Crisman Communications subcontractor that does a lot of the wiring and some of the equipment that's more of some of your access point and basic equipment. So even though it says labor, about 18,000 of that is equipment costs. The rest of that portion is labor, and then the hardware side is all Exos, which is that 19,000. The total that we're asking you guys to consider is 66,149.62. This would be really the final step from an infrastructure, IT infrastructure standpoint of separating from ISA in the city of Indianapolis. There'll still be some pathways that Jackson's working with VPN for connections to the city itself, more for CAD data, for lack of better terms, which apparently they don't like it being called CAD because it encompasses more, but really that's for them to get kind of active information. But gets us off of their equipment. Another big piece of that is it gets all their equipment out of the utility room and into the one IT closet, unifying all the network and hardware. So it's not by incoming water lines, and gas lines, and sewage, and everything that's in that. Every utility that comes in this building is in the same closet as their infrastructure currently. So
Where's the money coming out of?
this would probably be, I don't know if we have it enough in forfeiture or if it'd be a one-time appropriation from fund balance.
It could come from forfeiture or, Fund 249, the Lilly Fund. So for them, either one of those.
Just don't want to hear each other plug in. Do I have any questions for Ben or for Jackson?
So, yeah.
My first thought, I thought it was
46 and then another 60, 70, so,
Yeah.
I feel a little bit better now.
Yeah, they're, like I said, they're, I don't like how they did the budget, Jackson knows that, hi.
Pretty good.
What our financial.
I really don't like how they put the budget together, but. Once we sat down and talked with Jackson and his team, I then figured it out, I still don't like how they packaged it.
Guessing over POV switches.
I'm sorry,
They POV switches, are they Ps or
how are they working?
are they POE switches?
Yes, they're all powered.
Is there any training that's needed in this?
It, not really for our staff, it's mostly the network side of it, so it's more IT administration on that side, so.
The goal is to make everything as seamless as possible as opposed to the current MiFi situation for connecting to CAT that the police officers are going through.
That's how they're connected to the city currently from there.
And more than you. Yeah. Yeah, this should make everything, I've been different. Years ago. Really? They put in like the fourth mode in there. And it's a mess. So yeah, same thing.
So they're gonna clean up the existing closet it's going into.
Yeah, they'll be cleaning out this closet, removing everything from that closet. And making everything nice in this closet and getting rid of ISA's equipment, so we can be separated from them, getting rid of some of our end of life equipment. Like our firewall and some of that, so.
Sounds like this is we have to do this at some point.
Yeah.
It's IT, right, in 5 years.
Does that closet have a dedicated circuit to the generator?
It does, and it also has dedicated AC unit, which the other one doesn't, and it has actual security to it, which.
Or
The other one does in the sense that it's in a police department, but the room itself doesn't.
You gotta watch those cops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shady.
So, I mean, you keep that.
But Exos, Robert, his boss, has said they are confident that there won't be overages on this project. If something came up unknown, that would have to come before you guys as a change order, asking it to be considered as a not to exceed, and like we do, items existing. Jackson spent a lot of time in there, so I don't think there are any unknowns that we're going to run into, so.
Listed here how long the project will take them.
It does, it's, we got an earlier timeline because we're hoping to introduce it. That's kind of that Gantt chart at the beginning that shows more or less like a 2.5, 3 month implementation timeline. So from that project start.
Downtime or anything over between the two systems.
There'll probably be minimal downtime, but they'd coordinate that for hours that are off, and the police should still be able to access their Wi-Fi and other things until that's terminated, so.
Current ISP is 9 star.
Correct.
It's still gonna stay terminated. Or the,
9-star is in this closet.
In that closet.
so.
if we change ISPs down the road. And we have Crispin leave some pull strings. There, because they gotta come in where it's possible.
I think we'll be okay on that with the runs we already have running in there, because we have Cat6 and fiber both, and we own the fiber in the building, they don't, so.
Same piece, why it. Always a better deal, everything comes over on that side of the building.
You're right. Yeah, it's literally everything comes in through that closet.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Any other questions? Jackson, thank you for your input. Anybody else have anything? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the network rebuild contract with Exos not to exceed $66,149.62.
Never signed that.
And for them to be able to, yes, that's all right.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second, any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Jackson, have fun.
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna open the public hearing on the 2026 budget, the sustainability report, so I open the hearing. I'll close the hearing. Councilor comments?
Yes. Last week I sat in on the closing meeting with auditors from the state of Indiana, and I believe the federal government auditor also auditing, different things. I can't get into all the details, don't know, but regardless. Erica and her staff did a wonderful job, did a great job. Leading up to the point where I came in, the auditors commented on how easy it was to work with the staff. Completed their task in half the time they had allotted, thus saving us money, so my hat's off to Erica and her staff and Ben for a job well done. So.
Thanks.
I think she's gotten that recognition almost every time.
And full disclosure, I had sent me an email earlier today requesting an emergency repair that I approved on a pump. Which
It was the Stone Ridge lift station. It was one of the few pumps that were still on the Maxwell pump that happened converted to flight. It's running on just backup pump only right now, so authorize putting in a flight pump and replacing the broken, there's a miner's pump into that lift station, so.
you know, about 20.
Just a little better than 23,000, so it's an expensive one, but have to keep it, and if that backup pump goes down, we'll be bypass pumping and it's tune of probably about 50 to 2500 a day, so.
You know how long that was.
I think since they've given the notice to get it ordered, I think that's one of the pumps that is easier to get, so I guess it'll probably start work as soon as Monday next week.
Okay.
So I'll have to check with Cody for sure, because he's going to directly to them.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other council or comments?
I just said something really quick, we've gotten, the 2 cul-de-sacs in Belleville Village repaved, so everyone's appreciative. So it looks really nice, they did a good job.
We did it.
It did, I got 2 cul-de-sacs before, in the Harvest Williams, used to get everything bad, so it needed.
Yeah.
Please don't forget, not this Saturday, but following Saturday, we have Rock Timber, our final BBB for the year. Anything else, council? Yeah. No. Okay. Then future agenda item.
You guys will have, obviously, the introduced ordinances coming back to you. Still gonna have legal training, we're trying to find a lighter agenda, so we can focus mostly on that. Unless it's gonna be Christine, then she only needs 15 minutes. Adam will be bringing kind of policies, once we work a little bit more on that, we talked about last meeting, a bit more kind of formal drafts, so that we can get in the weeds. Their goal on that probably will be to give you guys those policies a month in advance, so that if we have another work session on point time review, think about what those numbers would be for excess reserves, things like that. Hopefully we'll have information on the drop things grant, since that opens in October, move forward. So gonna have a lot coming up, a lot going on, and I think they're obviously working on Black Smart and quite a bit now, so you guys will probably hear something about that coming meetings, but I know they put a lot of time into that, so.
Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll take a motion to adjourn the session.
So we. Second.
Adjourn. All right. Do we want to break a few minutes to do anything if we go to the work session, or we're ready to go right into it? Adam, you're up.
We.
Okay. Take care. Jackson, you're not staying.
What's up?
You're not staying.
Doesn't like.
An hour drive.
Learn about our fighting hills.
Oh, no, here's the excuse page. What to stay, okay?
Have a good evening.
Admiral.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, you kids are having, just wanna talk, can't you?
Get ready,
At
okay.
least it's not with a gallon.
Hey, I know, I got that in the truck, all right, so I'm gonna set the theme for this year's budget season as get ready for your head to spin. That is the best way I can explain it. Good if I get started? Pretty good, okay, so I brought a copy of our report. I know you just got this, so certainly, my goal today is just to give you kind of a page turn, point out some things that I'm seeing. Let you have some time with it, and then if you have any questions of adoption, we can deal with that, but we have couple different major sort of updates I wanna make sure you have as you're just considering everything that's been made available to you. This year has, I would say in a nutshell, this year has been a challenging budget year. I've been doing municipal budget every year since 2012. I have somewhat lost count on how many that I've actually personally been involved in. This is probably the hardest one that I have been involved with, but for my first one. My first one was just into fire hose training. It was just, it is what it is. This one was challenging, not because it was just uncertainty. It's the best way I can explain it. The state change in SB1, essentially everything that we knew about revenue from that perspective. So especially from a growing town's perspective, there were deep conversations on, and still persistent with respect to changes of how the levy can grow, how you can appeal and can, work through and navigate that if you're a growing community. Local income tax got completely overhauled, new credits, new deductions. I mean, basically the best way I can explain it is every single parcel in the state of Indiana was impacted by the bill. Every single parcel, either directly or indirectly. And I'll talk about it here in a little bit, but largely this public budget process is really a revenue budget process, and I'll explain what I mean by that here in a bit. So there was just a tremendous amount of uncertainty. Ben's done an incredible job, being involved and, can be very communicative and, but even with all that, the reality is some of these agencies that are tasked with administrating this are frankly, they're struggling, I think, to sort of interpret some of this as well, at least currently. So what does that mean? How do you navigate uncertainty? Well, what I would point to from a sustainability perspective would be flexibility. We want to make sure we have resiliency. We want to make sure we have reserves. We want to make sure we have good plans. We're prepared for that. I mean, basically, like we're heading into 2026 with a revenue estimate, and that's really what it is. There's no guarantee. We don't even have the assessed value on your largest tax base as of tonight. So we're doing the best we can to be conservative in estimates. And I think your reserves in this case are going to be critical. So when we look at the reserve, before we get into specific funds and estimates, just starting it with the reserves in a response to how uncertain the revenue picture is next year. You have, in most cases, you have over 100%. We're anticipating that at the end of 2026, you still would end the year with about 115% of those cumulative budgets in cash and investments. That's excellent reserves. As we mentioned at the last meeting, when we talked about the reserves, like usually best practice is somewhere between 20 and 25%. You have a multiple for that. Okay, so that's good. Some of these numbers are quite large, so I like to sort of kind of put this down to sort of a household budget. Many people don't know I started my career, my first finance job with personal finance consultant. Did a lot of own budgeting, and so I like to kind of keep it simple as much as I can. Your budget on a sort of percentages basis would be equivalent to someone who's earning a $50,000 salary and overspending their monthly income by about $175. Okay, but they also had $50,000 in cash in the bank. That's essentially proportionately kind of what's going on here at a much larger scale. So I hope that helps just kind of contextualize the information.
as far as what's new and what we're still sort of navigating, so as far as what we're still navigating, Hancock County has yet to certify assessed valuations for 2026. A couple of reasons that's a challenge. One is that is how we're funding half of the budget, essentially, is through property tax, and they are 75% of your tax base. And we're right now assuming zero growth on that tax base, just because we don't have the estimate. Marion County increased about 8% year over year. So we are anticipating that it's going to be somewhere in that range, but until they certify it, we just want to be conservative. So we're leaving that flat year over year. And it's the majority of your tax base is on the Hancock County side. As far as what's new, obviously it's been well covered at this point as far as Senate Enrolled Act 1, formerly SB 1. What I have heard in most council meetings is we get asked the simple question, well, what's the impact? Right? And it's like, well, okay, over what time scale? Because SB 1 is, we're talking about the 2026 budget, but that bill actually impacts you at least through 2031. Okay, so it starts in 2026, and then there's that one bill impacts tax flows through 2031 at least. So kind of ramps in, phases in through that period of time. So what I would say is I'll kind of try to respond to that, what's the impact question from a sustainability perspective in a couple different time scales. First, looking at just 2026. Then I want to talk about 2026 to 2028, what I would just kind of label near term, for lack of a better phrase. And then longer term, which would be sort of a 5 to 6 years sort of outlook. Okay, so 2026, the most clear, direct, defensible estimate is the new homestead tax credit. So as a reminder, there's new deductions and all these things, but there's also a new tax credit for homestead residential properties, owner-occupied homes that claim homestead. Starting immediately in 2026, they get the lesser of 10% or $300 statement credit on their annual tax bill. Okay, so quick example of that: if my annual tax bill next year comes out to be $2,000, I get $200, 10% off right there on the statement. If I want to pay $4,000, I get $300 right there off the bat. And the town's estimated share of that is approximately $178,000 immediately starting next year. That's dollar for dollar less than you're getting this year, and that'll be every year going forward. Okay, so for 2026, that is the clearest thing impact. That's revenue reduction that otherwise you would have had. Okay, the looking out through sort of more the near term, 2026, 2028 starts getting a little bit more where we have to kind of make some assumptions. At that point in time, we're about halfway through the conversion to the supplemental. We have, so the biggest impact, again, to be conservative, is local income tax. Local income tax today across the funds is $3.2 million for the town. That goes to zero in 2028. 3.2 million goes to zero in 2028 if there's not reenactment measures taken by the council in fall, no later than the fall of 2027. That is 46% of the revenues that you have before you tonight. So from a budgetary impact, as your advisor, what I do not like about SB 1 is most municipalities do one-year budgets. All of the impact, a lot of the impact is multiple years out. There are going to be communities that this month and next month adopt budgets that have a bunch of position requests, that have a bunch of things that are really tied by largely by a local income tax base that this law completely takes away in 2028. So I just would want you to be abundantly clear of that risk and understand kind of what options you have. I mean, you have the bill does make it a home rule type option for you to enact your own and consider that. But as far as a budgetary sustainability, budgetary risk perspective in the near term, the lit going to zero is the biggest impact, period. It's multiples more than the real property tax impact. Okay. And then lastly, looking out like a 5 to 6 year horizon, circuit breaker risk is what I'm personally concerned about. As you start to kind of model this and look at it in different contexts, it's pretty clear to see that tax rates across the board are going to move to $3 at the district level. And that's just going to be a byproduct of levies really kind of staying the same or growing, and assessed values getting significant deductions. The only thing that can give there is the tax rates coming up. So if you have a community such as Cumberland that's already experiencing circuit breaker, the tax rates go up, circuit breaker won't, circuit breaker just goes up. So I think by 2029, 2031, if there's not other legislative adjustments, which hopefully there will be, I think you'll see even more and more compression and expansion in circuit breaker, which just means that, in kind of English, it just means that your net actual property tax revenue that you can use each year is either going to be very low growth, possibly negative each year. Okay, so that's kind of the high level. Some opportunities for 2026. The town grew sufficient to qualify again for a 3-year assessed value levy growth appeal. The amount for that would be you qualify for $415,000 of new property appeal. They have expanded that process. They've made it more challenging for the sake of, because of how that process works and that it's not a sort of guarantee. It's really, other than just being mentioned in this report, none of our estimates assume any of that. Okay, if we just kind of table that, and these are the base assumptions, the appeal is a second track.
And I did talk about that in the memo. We think there's probably a less than 10% chance that they will award that this year, because things that kind of Adam was explaining, they moved the goalpost and how they were that it's already somewhat difficult, and we normally got an initial rejection. But one of the options they have in here is basically they can declare that you guys have excess reserves that without you saying that that's reserves, and deny it without appeal, whereas in the past you guys got denied for that. But you got an option for appeal, but the state legislature didn't want the levy appeals left in. That was an oversight of the legislation, so they asked them to make it more difficult to achieve.
In my understanding of our conversation, even somehow if we got the levy, there's other circuit breaker issues that we have problems with.
It would adjust, the levy adjusts circuit breaker and rate, so it's all tied together.
So, I'll do a quick page turn on this here in a moment. The big one is obviously general fund. That's the significant operating fund for the town. It's projected to have expenses exceed revenues by approximately 4%. Cash balances projected at the end of 2026, though, are nearly 100% of the budget. So in other words, even if there was no revenue in 2027, you could fund the same 2026 budget almost all the way through 2027. To just again try to contextualize the reserves. Another way to think about that is the annual expected budgetary net revenue is just shy of about $200,000 negative amount. Based on the cash reserve that you have, you could sustain that for almost 20 years in that position. So from a reserves perspective, that's really what's setting the town up to be able to kind of navigate this well. But what we would encourage is that you try to continue to be opportunistic while you're growing. I think what things that we would encourage you to continue to look at, things that you're already doing, just continue to build on it, would be take a look back through, make sure you're putting as much in the investment trust Indiana program as you possibly can. Those rate of returns are still favorable. We definitely think the policies, specifically the reserve and rainy day use, are just good in light of the property tax reform. I think it puts more controls on council. And as I mentioned, municipal lit to me is critical. And if the strategy is anything but replacing municipal lit, then I would be very eyes wide open on the funds that are lit funded. And that would be general fund, edit, and PS, the public safety lit funds. Those funds are all heavily exposed in the bill. And then, future reference for future planning purposes, we think that the policies and some of the work that you're already doing, the town by 2027, 2028, you could be really in a good spot to start doing sort of like budget book publications. All those sort of policies and reserves and all those kind of things make it to where you can go beyond just sort of gateway type forms and actually make sort of a document for the public. So, with all that said, overview on the process. So as I mentioned at the start, you may notice that your fund reports have significantly more funds than what's in this packet. So all funds technically need to be appropriated, but not all funds are kind of levy-based funds or tax-based funds, like for example, utilities, et cetera. So what you're working on in this meeting and in October are really the property tax-based funds of the town. The Department of Local Government Finance actually reviews your adopted budget, and they will certify it up to the point that you just can't deplete cash. Okay, so one of the things that I think that the town is doing well is this sort of process where we have review, share information and estimates. What I'm getting at there is that this process is really a revenue budget process, because you're really going through the process to set the levy for next year, to set the tax rate for next year, and appropriate those funds such as general, MBH, parks, et cetera, that predominantly benefit from property tax revenue. So what that means is that in January, you still have all the normal controls you have. You can change appropriations, you can transfer, do all those things. This is what you can't change next year is what the tax rate is, what the levy is, what goes out on tax bills, et cetera. Okay. So tonight was the public hearing. Your next meeting is the adoption, just to cover the adoption kind of protocols. Basically, budget has to be submitted approximately by like November 1st via the state portal. If you vote no, or you don't reach a majority yes vote by that point, it just reverts back to the most recent adopted budget, which would be 2025. I think that's kind of it from an overview standpoint.
And Adam, I'm going to assume, let's say for the sake of argument, we approve the budget next time.
Yep.
And we still have firm numbers.
Yeah.
Once we get firm numbers, then we would have to go back in and do like a revised budget. Would that be accurate?
I'd say not really.
Not really. Yeah, we'd have to do additional appropriations probably, or,
If you wanted to add more to the budget at that time, appropriate it, it's unlikely that you'll want to reduce it based off revenues with being conservative, but I mean.
It's a great question, and I could point it back to why I kind of say this is almost more of a revenue budget exercise, because really what you can't change is the property tax, and these budgets have already sort of tried to optimize that to the fullest. There's really not going to be any way to amend that. Even if the assessed values in Hancock County come up, there's really not much that's going to do on the levy side. So it would really be the expense budgets the next year you have all your normal controls to be able to kind of move or change. So there's a lot in here. I don't want to bore you with it, but basically the way the packet is constructed is the first several pages go through kind of the overview town-wide. It goes through both the county specific and then consolidated pictures of the levies, the appeals, the tax rates, et cetera. And then when you get about midway through, you start getting into, we included this year in the report a multi-year levy forecast based on the bill. And it goes out to 2031. That is this will become a rolling component because SB1 is such a dynamic bill that this will update each year, so we can track to this and make sure we have kind of a long-term perspective. It looks at cash flow by fund and then goes into the fund financials or fund budgets for your review. What we did here is we reviewed all the town's information. These are largely reflect the town's expense budget estimates. What we did is we independently validated the actuals. We also independently sourced all of our own revenue estimates on the levy state revenues, those types of things. And it's been a great process working with the clerk treasurer's office. We share information. She helps me work through stuff and we provide her stuff. So it's a good kind of open communication process. I have said for years, budgeting is a team sport. It takes kind of a little bit of everybody to see the picture and get the best estimate possible for the town. The net of all this is your cumulative budgeted cash flow, meaning if every single dollar of revenue is right and every single dollar of expense is spent, right? Then we project that across the budgeted funds, there's a negative change in cash of $31,765. Note that assumes that $50,000 appropriated to rainy day is fully spent. It has not been spent in years. So when you adjust back kind of a non-rainy day event, you actually have a net surplus cumulative across the fund of about $18,235, which is basically 0% of the total revenue, which is right within our tolerances. Our best practice is plus or minus 1%, okay, across all funds. The cumulative reserves are really exceptional. And we're projecting that in 2026 with over $8 million in reserves across all these funds. And things, as I close, as I open, it was kind of an uncertain year, and you navigate uncertainty by having a plan and having some resilience, reserves, and those types of things. One of the things that I think that is just sort of structurally unique to town of Cumberland and how you budget. One is you have been collecting and banking 100% of your cumulative capital development fund for years. That fund has amassed about $750,000 in expected reserves. There's nothing appropriated to it. That is a significant advantage to you all. Additionally, you do budget rainy day, but you don't have a history of spending it. And baked within your general fund, you have sort of contribution to the redevelopment commission that within reasonable degrees of kind of restructuring could also be adjusted as well. And that's a meaningful kind of boost to the general fund. So those 2 or 3 things I think they're all baked into the numbers and the sort of balanced budget overall, but certainly you create opportunities for the town council. If for any reason the economy turns worse than or is modeled, you have those cards in the budget. So I covered a lot. I'm happy to go in more detail. All my contact information's in the report. I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations. I'm happy to have you can email me any questions. I want to make sure you understand it as much as you want to for constituents, questions, and those kind of things. But commend the staff in town for being so open through the process and sharing information. And I think that the town is well positioned to kind of work through this. I think the most important thing will be to see how the legislative session in 2026 and 27 does it kind of continue to stack on, or some of these things kind of walk back. We'll see that next year. That's all I have. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So looking into the future,
Yep.
We have to implement like a local income tax or raise it, like our part of it. How would that affect like homeowners, like they're having lower property taxes? Would that offset the local income tax so that they wouldn't really be paying more, or would they be paying,
Sure. We've looked at that. Obviously, if you're retired and not working, and you're not paying that income tax, and I think Adam's looked at it for the multiple times, not just us, but we think a working individual with a deduction plus AV growth, other credits expiring, probably gonna have a net loss of about $1,000 when you combine the property tax with the income tax.
The person is.
The working individual will probably have a net loss of about $1,000. Some of the very high level projections that Erica looked at, like if you guys adopt the municipal income tax, which we would highly recommend doing that at the rate that the legislature's offered, we would be about breaking even based on the current estimates on our income tax. There'd still be a loss in property tax revenue growth under the current legislation, but One of the points I wanted to bring up, that like 178, 400,000, is off of your growth, so revenues grows, but you have that immediate impact of that new deduction of that, so the revenues are still growing into this budget, that's why you see, the math pans out that way, but there is that immediate estimated impact of about $180,000 less, but for, Senate Bill Act that you guys would be.
I know it's, wait, Amy, sorry.
I have one other, I don't know if it's a question, more of a concern, so. Health insurance is predicted to go up, like the premiums. Have we taken, I don't know if that's for sure gonna happen, but everything I've read says it will, even.
Yeah.
Even for,
Yeah, reinsurance, we're anticipating to go up, we think we're in better shape than others, we are, talking to lots of individuals, we think we're. Gonna be okay going into next year, we don't have firm numbers yet, because we were still trying to put stuff out to market, because we only had through July at the time that we were looking at last, but. We do think reinsurance will be going up, we still think partially self-insured is what's best for the plan right now. Have met with Hancock Regional Community Health to talk about narrow network options, a wrap. Similar to what they've done with City of Fisher and some other communities that are looking at Hancock Regional. There's a lot more cost control that way, but it's a lot more limiting on providers. Because if you're in that narrow network, you have to go to community, if it's community, unless. They don't offer that specialty, then that goes into the wrap, or if you have out of state children, that goes into the wrap. If you have ongoing specialty care, that's a carve out from those type of plans until that care were to end, and then if it's a specialty network, you have to move to. So, we're evaluating a lot of options on that, but we think with what we're budgeting, that's based off those numbers that we're looking at for next year.
We increased the amount that we put
Okay.
into the self-insurance fund by
So this
quite
is
a
something,
bit.
yeah.
okay,
By 500.
I mean, it could be a significant increase from what I read.
And we're forecasting that, we do think we're gonna be better than some entities with our reinsurance, but we will probably have. 3 lasers on our reinsurance, it looks like right now.
Okay, that's good, I feel better.
Adam, if we read through this before the next meeting, I know this is a projection. And I've kind of listened to you as far as being on the conservative side. Do you feel this is worst case scenario? I mean, I can't hold you to it, because I mean, I realize you have it on the budget and everything.
Yeah, I would say worst case, I would say it's not worst case scenario.
Okay.
And I'll qualify that by saying that we don't. The actual circuit breaker estimate from the state was meaningfully higher. We worked it down because we also knew it was all really conservative. I mean, it was ridiculously high. We knew that, so we worked that down.
Zero AV growth was in the state numbers talked about in budget, so that assumes no AV growth statewide is what they put out.
Yeah, so that we knew that the state estimate was sort of way too bearish, not gonna happen, too remote of a chance. So we kind of worked ours down kind of logically. But we really, unfortunately, we won't know that actual number until about like April of next year. So, worst case scenario would be, some sort of combination of the circuit breaker gets certified meaningfully higher than we estimated. And there's a major material additional appropriation approved in the year 2026 that we don't have visibility to right now, right? That would be kind of what I would say is worst case. Best case would be you don't have a single budget appropriation next year. These budgets are, we hold to, we beat on the circuit breaker and you get the appeal. So I think we're somewhere kind of in between.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all so much again. If there's anything I can do to help make it clearer for you, just so that you have good information to make a decision, I'm happy to help. Otherwise, thank you so much. Have a good day.
As always, thank you, Adam, very much. Anybody else have any additional questions for Adam or for staff?
And ask the same thing, if it raised any other budgetary questions, concerns, but. So we try to stay reasonably flat about further things that I like to, so.
I mean, I realize one of the news, the state's probably going to have special sessions looking more likely on that, and it's probably not going to address the people that was in this issue.
Yeah, they're probably not gonna address this legislation until the next actual scheduled session in the spring.
Yeah.
But they are going to address this legislation, it's just nobody knows exactly in which way. That's
We're only several months into our budget.
correct.
That's how they done, we'll probably, that's gonna happen here.
Yeah, it likely won't impact, it won't impact that pay year, because we're still in pay 26, 25 budget, so. It won't affect what we're doing. The income tax, I anticipate getting better. Property tax portion of it, I think they're gonna fix some technical issues, and you guys heard Representative Lawson say last meeting, they're looking at a rate base. Adam and I are gonna talk about that, there's one model of that, that's actually really positive for the town. But there's another way where circuit breakers still shared throughout the district that can be fairly negative on everybody in the taxing district, so. It really depends on how they decide to treat circuit breaker, if they make that change to rate base for the individual. $3, what the House is universally saying is $3 district rate, and then the individual units will be assigned tax rates under that with that property tax. Most likely, towns having something like a 75 cents tax rate.
So Adam needs to run for office then, is what you're saying.
I'm a terrible politician. I do, you know, as we've been shared. I think there's aspects of what the state is doing that, I mean, what they're acknowledging is that the current system is broken, no one understood it. And I think that is a true statement, and I think it was broken, and I think it makes no sense, and. We, you know, Erica and I on Saturday one day sat around and talked about how it's just like. You know, the state preaches transparency, but how can you be transparent when you can't explain it? If it takes me a week to try to teach somebody how property taxes work, that's like a week too hard of municipal finance. It should take like a minute, you know? And so I think that part they're right, where I think they what, you know. I think I mean, I can go back to what I said, it impacted every parcel in the state of Indiana. So there is gonna be complexities that come out of that, the bond markets. From all the various different sort of subgroups that sort of benefit or don't benefit from this. All of that would normally be worked out over multiple summer committees and study sessions. They didn't give it the time, you know, just kind of all went through, so. This is kind of the summer study committee, you know, kind of working through it, so. I think there will be necessary and meaningful technical changes. And, you know, we'll continue to try to help you steer through it, but, you're in a lot better position than most, and that's because of actually you all taken in past councils. To try to keep the town, you know, healthy, and you're also growing, which is good. It's the communities that are not growing and don't have reserves that are having very different budget conversations this fall.
Rural communities are much more impacted by the legislation. And even the property tax changes, like the House is calling it more or less eat what you kill. So like if you're growing like us, you're actually collecting maybe in a more real time, better way, depending on how they do circuit breaker. But if you're in some of the rural communities with shrinking AV, they're also taking real hard hits in immediate time. So if you're shrinking in that, your property taxes taking that. And also, they aren't really considering that recessions and true recessions happen, like Adam's comment, and more or less. To me, to them, is say, hey, that bottom number is not zero, the bottom number is a negative number. Maybe can actually go negative, not stop at zero. So could get to a situation, depending on how they do it, where you basically have debt service only in property tax in some communities under a true recessive model. But
The part that gets me is so many people where your property taxes are lowered. Because of what the state's doing, a lot of people won't even notice it. you know, but it's a big impact on,
Right, especially AV continues to grow with our things.
Especially the guy that asked us what other.
yeah, and so like,
So notice the $1,000 less in income.
anyway, yeah, it, to me, it was just a big,
It's a weird thing to
Yeah.
pass the legislation retroactively and then say, we're dig into it.
it was all shoved to me, like, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway.
All right, does anybody have anything else we close out this, Joe, you okay? Yep. Anna?
I'm good.
Ed? Mike? All right, thanks everybody for the time, question, Adam, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Is that kind of bad?
It does, how did you know?